I seriously doubt that I need to mount this apologetic for anyone here, but if any of the more traditional religious folks who might catch this message online, let me make this distinction. Politics is about political parties, candidates, and elections. Religion is about ethics, values, character, and primarily compassion. If you boil down what really is the essence of a spiritual worldview, it revolves around a feeling of radical compassion. So faith communities, as a part of society, we do provide certain religious rituals, such as weddings, funerals, baptisms, and other coming of age and rites of passage ceremonies. But a big part of religious tradition is applying ethics and character and compassion to the institutions of power that are all around us. Like when Moses historically said to the Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Or when the ancient Hebrew prophets, Elijah, Jeremiah, Amos, Hosea, confronted the rulers and businesses that oppressed the poor. Or the Buddha, who is said to have abandoned royal station in life to identify with the poor and who taught compassion as a primary spiritual value. And of course, Jesus, who is said to have healed the sick, both the rich and the poor, the white and the brown, without asking for copay, an insurance card, or that they first satisfy an outrageous deductible. Because sincere religion is always concerned with radical compassion, when the government comes between healthcare providers and the sick who need healthcare, then the government becomes sermon material. I would say in 2019 that any priest, pastor, rabbi, or imam who has not been preaching about access to health care in the last decade should seriously consider looking into a career as a used car salesman and let someone with a conscience have a shot at your pulpit.
Preach it.
Maybe that's a little strong. What I meant to say to both male and female clergy is either grow a pair or shut the hell up. Because there are still 44 million people in America who do not have health care. And in spite of lying politicians who talk about how much people love the health insurance that they've got, the truth is that no one who has ever had to use their insurance likes it all that much. While a lot of people say that they don't want to change to Medicare because they think what they have now is better, I just want to say this. We have 22,000 people who die every year unnecessarily because they don't have adequate access to health care. So if you don't want to change the system because you like what you've got and you don't care about those 22,000 people that die, then I need to say to you, you should consider yourself to be on the outside looking in on this conversation because you don't have enough humanity in your heart to be taken seriously as a part of the debate. It's like the gun advocates, who are always against any suggestion that we have about how to stem the gun violence, but they never offer any ideas about how they would like to reduce what is now 40,000 people a year being killed by gun violence. If you want to keep in place a set of laws that is allowing carnage at this level, then we have a special chair for you where you can sit down and shut up. Because we know what kind of spiritual leader the world needs right now, and you're not it. So let me get to the subject at hand. I know this chart can be kind of hard to see, but the basic point is that compared to all the other Western democracies, the United States spends roughly twice as much as almost everyone else and more than twice as much as France, Canada, Belgium, Japan, Australia, and the United Kingdom on health care. And they have virtually no deductibles in any of those other Western democracies. Now, why is this? Why do Americans spend twice as much while getting so much less than these other countries? Let me give you an illustration from my personal life. My doctor wants me to get an echocardiogram every few years because she says I have a heart murmur. I don't know. I've had people tell me I don't even have a heart, but she thinks she hears something and I need to have an echocardiogram every few years. So what do you think that test ought to cost? What should it cost me to let some guy run I guess it's a magnet, they run over you to take a look at your heart? When my insurance-provided nonprofit hospital called me to schedule the test, they told me it would cost me $1,450 to have the test, out of pocket. I don't even know if I need the test. I mean, it could be what we theologians call an act of supererogation on my doctor's part, which is more than even God expects of you, you know. But it isn't surgery. It isn't treatment. It's not medicine. It's not pharmaceuticals. It's just part of a checkup. So I might elect to skip it, but I happen to have access to another doctor who looked up an alternative, and I could get the test done in Kansas City for $450, less than 1/3 of what my nonprofit hospital is going to charge me. And this is a for-profit business. So what does it actually cost to give a corpulent cleric an echocardiogram? A couple of $100? Why do they charge $1,450? Why does health care cost more than twice as much in the United States as it does elsewhere? Because, men and women, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare providers have turned being sick, or in my case, just being old, into an opportunity to make money. They get to turn your money into their money while lobbying and running ads to get you to vote for the same regimes that are just bathing under the spigot of money that used to be your money. If America manages to go to a single-payer system, whether it's Medicare for all or some other iteration of a single-payer system, our costs will go down by about 50%. And that is just math. Anyone that tells you otherwise is either stupid or they are lying to you. Amen. The fact is, if we go to a single-payer system, the actual percentage of Americans' income that is going to pay for health care will go down by half. Now, politics will dictate who pays that half. If the cost of health care is distributed fairly across the economic playing field, lower income people will pay less, higher income people will pay more, and that is what has the corporate news media and the oligarchic puppet masters of our economy all up in arms, because the rich don't want to pay more. I was holed up in Kansas City in a hotel after my $450 echocardiogram on Tuesday, watching the Democratic debate in which the corporate media and the corporate candidates were trying to force Elizabeth Warren to say that her Medicare for All proposal would make middle-class taxes go up. Now, the truth is, and I've said this in this pulpit before, we would be shifting from paying premiums to insurance companies to paying for health care through taxes. And employers who've been paying premiums for their employees can either stop paying those premiums and give the same amount of money to their employees as wages, or they could be taxed to pay into the Medicare system. So costs will go down, and they will go down dramatically. But how it is paid for will change, and that change is actually a fairly complicated political debate. But it could be done fairly and done in a way where virtually everyone, corporations, the rich, and the poor alike, will all benefit. Everyone will be better off when we stop raking off the bureaucratic costs and the profits taken in our current system. And I dare say that while Americans just don't understand how this would work and why they would benefit, I know this with certainty: All 12 candidates on the stage Tuesday night do understand the math, the political issues, and the process. At least 11 of them do. I mean, yeah, there's always, never underestimate the possibility of stupid among politicians, but I'm going to assume that of the 12 people on stage and the correspondents that were doing the questioning, they all already know the right answers. They're just acting like they don't. Pete Buttigieg is a veteran. He was a Rhodes Scholar, a Harvard graduate, and a self-proclaimed evangelical Christian. And yet he stood on stage and lied like a cheap rug about the costs and benefits of Medicare for all. Now, currently, Mayor Pete is second only to Donald Trump in political contributions from health insurance and pharmaceutical companies. Proof that our system of political donations can corrupt someone, even someone that we would otherwise really want to like. I mean, I want to like a guy with this kind of education, this kind of smarts, and the fact that he is openly gay and married, and this is the kind of guy that I might really want to get happy about if it weren't for taking all that money from drug companies and standing on stage and lying like he assumes that we are all as dumb as a box of rocks. Senator Amy Klobuchar bills herself as a pragmatist and calls Medicare for all a pipe dream. And it is a pipe dream if your first priority is to make sure that you surrender immediately to the outrageous and obscene profits pocketed by the health insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. If, however, you have some measure of compassion and you want sick people to be able to get health care, it is not only not a pipe dream, it is a practical, efficient, and eminently affordable way to do it. You just have to decide if you want to serve the billionaire corporate interest or the interests of the American people, and honestly, it's not much more complicated than that. I just wish that smart people would stop treating voters as if we were as gullible as a preschool-aged child being enticed to get into the van in the promise of candy. We currently have a president who lies about everything. Is it too much to ask then for those who want to replace the liar in chief to tell the truth about things as important as health care? In this moment, I'm not standing here advocating for any one candidate. I'm not against any one candidate or candidates. What I am in favor of as a religious professional is compassion. I need to see America do what every other Western democracy has done, which is to provide health care to everyone, regardless of age, race, gender, or nation of origin. Period. End of story. Because anything less is morally bankrupt, and haven't we all had enough of that already? Politics is sometimes the art of dividing people against one another so that they can never see who is really controlling their destiny and taking their wallet at the same time. Now, this sign has become fairly famous on social media. This insulin user is outraged by the amount of money that's being spent to save heroin addicts from overdoses. But the real problem is not how much money is being spent to save heroin addicts. The real question is, why does your insulin cost $750 a month? That's the real issue. If the same vial of insulin costs 90% less in Canada as it does in the United States, your problem is not heroin addicts. Your problem is politicians who are addicted to the political donations of pharmaceutical companies. If you're an insulin user, you have reason to be angry, but you should be angry about who is actually robbing you rather than someone who is probably just as much a victim as you are. Now, it's difficult to gauge exactly how much public support there is for Medicare for all because the voting public is being lied to constantly by both Republicans and Democrats about health care in order to protect the financial interests of the super wealthy providers. But this much I know for sure. 100% of the people who are sick want to have access to health care. And I can add this, 100% of those people will believe that they ought to be able to get that health care without having to go bankrupt. And that is the system we do not currently have in this country. And I'm going to keep talking about it until we do. Amen. Folks, this is what I believe. I believe that peace in the absence of justice is really just surrender. And this is no time for us to surrender our health for corporate profit.
Thank you for watching our videos. We are entirely dependent on the donations of our listeners and members. We hope that you find this content to be important enough to help us to keep offering these videos to the public at no charge by becoming a regular contributor. Please click on the donate button on our website at www.spfccc.org. Thank you for your support of progressive religious programming.